Hello everyone and welcome to another video. My name's Keir Smith. Now today's video will be something different. Normally I'd come on here and I'd be well versed in the album that I'm going to talk about. But the album that I'm going to talk about, rather briefly, is an album that I think I bought 10, maybe even more years ago, but I've never listened to it. I've delayed it and delayed it further, almost avoided listening to it. But the time has finally come. I'm going to do it. I am going to do it. I'm going to listen to, for the first time ever, Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Now, a bit of background is entirely necessary here. I love progressive rock, the genre, the bands, the artwork and the music inside these landmark and pioneering albums. The quality of the musicianship is mind-blowing at times. The long sprawling epics. It's music that takes the listener on a complete journey, and largely I find it all fascinating. Some of my favourite albums of all time include Close to the Edge by Yes and Going for the One. I consider them masterpieces. Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, The Final Cut. I love the concepts behind those albums and the raw emotion of those works. I think King Crimson's Locks, Tongues and Aspic is very good. I really like Red. Although, honestly, I only bought Red last November, but I've grown to love that one very quickly. An awesome, heavy and dark album. Aqualung and Thick as a Brick and Stormwatch too. But admittedly, I was a little slower coming round to Genesis, particularly Peter Gabriel era Genesis. The first Genesis album I ever bought, I was, I think, as young as 17 years old, but that was We Can't Dance, which, of course, is less proggy than their 70s works. But I loved all of those Phil Collins singles and Genesis singles from the 80s. So I started off being a Phil Collins fan and a Phil Collins Genesis fan rather than a Peter Gabriel Genesis fan. For me, those Collins-led Genesis albums were a bit more satisfying in the immediate sense. I really like the self-titled album from 1983 and possibly Abacab even more, Keep It Dark and Man on the Corner. I love those songs. And A Trick of the Tail from 1976, which could go on to be my favourite Genesis album because the more I listen to that, the more I love it. I think Squonk and Los Endos are fantastic pieces of work. I wouldn't be surprised if I came on here in, I don't know, maybe 6 months or a year's time and declared that to be their creative masterpiece. But admittedly, I had been slow, very slow in fact, coming round to those Peter Gabriel-led Genesis albums. Quite simply, I guess I wasn't ready for all that those albums had to offer me, nor was I ready to latch onto Peter Gabriel's vocal stylings. I think Phil Collins is an amazing singer. He has a fantastic range and his vocals were immediately pleasing to my ears. But over the last few years especially, I have gone back and listened to Nursery Crime, Foxtrot and Selling England by the Pound, and I've really began to enjoy them. Out of that trio of albums, I actually came to Foxtrot last, which I know that a lot of Genesis fans will say is their best album. And yes, of course, Supper's Ready is absolutely brilliant, but I do really like Get 'Em Out by Friday too. And I also went back and listened to some of Peter Gabriel's earlier solo albums like Peter Gabriel 3, which again, I bought Peter Gabriel 1, 2 and 3 many years ago and again, maybe listened to once or twice and shelved. But I was at a record fair the other week and I was rummaging through this guy's stack of CDs. He was selling 4 CDs for $5, so I had a good look through there and I picked up Peter Gabriel 4, which I hadn't got. And I listened to it once and I rather enjoyed it, so I listened to it again and then a third time. This is the one with Shock the Monkey on. Wallflower is really good. There's lots of keyboards and synths and interesting drum patterns and percussion across that album. I think it was the frontrunner for all of that world music that he did later on in his career, which I'm not familiar with. But after listening to that album over the last couple of weeks, I could hear The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway calling me once again, and I thought, yeah, the time is now. It's high time I listen to it. When I was thinking about making this video, I started jotting a few thoughts down on paper, and I remember having a similar situation with Tales from Topographic Oceans by Yes. I got into Yes in my mid-20s. I think I was 25 or 26 when I bought my first Yes album, which was Fragile. But that didn't blow me away. I know a lot of people think it's a great album. I think it's a good album. But I persevered and I bought Close to the Edge, and the rest is history. It wasn't too long before I bought Tales from Topographic Oceans, and admittedly, I did listen to that once when I first bought it, and then I shelved it for years. I do listen to an awful lot of music and I'm never stuck for something to listen to. So if I buy something and it doesn't strike a chord immediately, sometimes I might give it a second or third attempt, and in some cases I'll listen to it once and put it on the shelf. I buy a lot of music too, and some albums I buy with the intention of listening to, but again, they could possibly sit on the shelf for 6 months to a year. Look, Calling All Stations is still in its shrink wrap. And I can hear many of you saying, and that's where it should stay. No Peter Gabriel nor Phil Collins. What on earth is that going to be? My love of all things progressive rock has really accelerated over, I'd say, the last 3 years especially. I've loved Pink Floyd for the longest time. I was into them as early as 17 and quickly bought all of their albums, and again, didn't like all of them at first. It took me a long time to get round to The Dark Side of the Moon. Again, I was 17, I was still basking in the glow of the Beatles' Summer of Love and All You Need Is Love and all of that good stuff. I wasn't ready for these heavy and weighted themes. Yes, as I said, came to me in my mid-20s, and then I think from there I started putting the feelers out and picking up other classic albums from the genre. But it's really accelerated over the last 3 years, thanks in no small part to me finding Scott Lade's channel, The Prog Corner, on YouTube. He won't mind me saying that guy is prog mad and utterly infectious with it. Tales from Topographic Oceans is his favourite album of all time, and that made me go back and listen to it again. And then I got into that album in a really big way. I played it once, I played it twice, I played it a third time, then I started dissecting it by playing a particular side. I still think side 2 is the best. What do you think? But just before I found Scott's channel, I'd been watching a lot of Pete Pardo's Sea of Tranquility channel too. He's a big prog lover too, and he inspired me, if you like, to go back and listen to King Crimson's Locks, Tongues and Aspic, and also Gentle Giant, Three Friends, who I'd never heard of and took a chance on after seeing his enthusiasm for the band. So yeah, thanks to those guys, they definitely reignited my spark and enthusiasm for progressive rock as a genre. And speaking of Scott and his wonderful channel, The Prog Corner, I think he said that The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway is his second favourite album of all time, behind Tales from Topographic Oceans. But even that didn't inspire me to give it a listen any quicker. I guess everything has its time and place, and the time has finally come. I do know a little bit about this album. I remember watching a great documentary from another great prog channel on YouTube, Rael NYC. He painstakingly puts together these wonderful prog rock videos on the classic albums from the 70s. And so I've heard snippets of bits of music from the album, but because it's a double album, a concept album, and it doesn't have any hit singles attached to it, I've never been exposed to the songs from this album. And because I knew that it was such a big and expansive album, I again shied away from listening to it, knowing that I would need to give it my full attention, as I like to do. You can't dip in and out of these albums half-heartedly. I've learnt that. I believe that all albums should be listened to start to finish. I'm not a big fan of this modern age cherry-picking tracks here and there. I like to sit down, put the album on, absorb it all in one listen and come away from it and have a good think about it. I really was waiting for this time to come where I felt ready to give it my full attention and listen closely. That's one of my favourite things about progressive rock. It's a very complete and immersive experience, both in sound and vision. The cover, the artwork, the titles, the songs, the lyrical detail. It's the full package. It's all connected. So I know that the concept of the album follows the story of a guy called Rael, and it's based in New York City. Apparently he's a loose and rebellious youth who goes through a series of events onto some kind of spiritual awakening. Is that right? I have heard the title track from this album. That came to me via the free Spotify on my phone. I was playing a best prog rock songs playlist some time ago. I don't sign up nor subscribe to Spotify, you understand. I buy and pay for music. I appreciate it and respect it as an art form. If that makes me sound pretentious, good. But seriously, music is important and it has the greatest relevance for me. Give me a good album to listen to, a physical copy that I can look at, read, listen to and absorb, and I'm happy as a sandboy. And on that note, I'm going to go away and listen to this. Genesis, The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I'm excited. I really am. You see so many thumbnails for videos on YouTube, don't you, where people have got shocked expressions on their face. First time hearing the Beatles, Abbey Road. And I look at them and I think, come off it. You must be in your mid-20s, early 30s, and you're saying that you've never listened to the Beatles, Abbey Road? Come off it. Get like 14,000 views because all the Beatles fans are on there tapping away at the keyboards furiously saying, what? You've never listened to this before? But here I am telling you that I've never listened to The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, so enough said. I'm going to go away and do just that. I hope it's good. No, not good. I want it to be great. I want it to blow my socks off. I want it to at least do what Tales from Topographic Oceans did for me. I'll maybe come back on in a few months' time and tell you what I think about it. I've got to listen to an album at least 3 times before I feel comfortable talking about it. But anyway, thank you so much for stopping by and watching this video. If you've got any thoughts or comments on the album, please do leave them down below, and I might see you in a few months with a bit of a review. Until then, bye for now.